We'll be kicking off in about 10 seconds, if that's okay, if people are up for finding their seats. So thank you everybody for joining us. Our next speaker is Antoine Gaume from CNIL, talking about proposals for privacy by design age assurance systems. Antoine is an IT and privacy expert working for the French data regulator CNIL and the Commission nationale de l'informatique et des libertés. He has been pioneering analysis of a double-blind solution for securing age verification in a way that protects identity and civil liberties. So over to you, Antoine.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Bonjour. Thank you also to the organizers of this summit and for allowing us to speak here. So as George said, I will speak today about privacy by design in age assurance system and trying to expose the risk-based approach that we've been following to design, to push for systems that will get more privacy and security without losing too much of the effectiveness of age verification and age restrictions online. Privacy by design is actually defined in the GDPR Article 25, called data protection by design and by default, and pushes for data controllers to implement state-of-the-art organizational and technical measures in order to protect data subjects' rights. So this is from where I stand. As George said, I work at the CNIL, which has been the French Data Protection Authority since 1978, and is now a member of the European Data Protection Board since the coming into full force of the GDPR in 2018. We've had, of course, a long-term interest in digital identity and digital access management, and we consider that age verification is actually some sub-part of identity management with this little twist that estimation is possible, which is not possible with identity. You cannot estimate the identity of someone. So it creates some new opportunities and new challenges for both security and privacy and effectiveness. The CNIL has been working on age assurance for maybe 3-4 years specifically, and we've had several publications on the subject exploring both the age assurance methods and their implications in terms of privacy and effectiveness. And we have also published proof of concept using zero-knowledge proof protocol, so group signature, in order to, with a professor from École Polytechnique in Paris-Saclay, and trying to push solutions that would allow age verification to not bring new privacy risks to users. And this is, as you will see, this is the core idea that we're pushing, that age verification should be done, and we think can be done without new risks to the privacy of children, of course, and all users that will use these systems. As for me, I am an information technology and privacy expert, so I work in the technical part of our institution. I will try to be not too technical, and I will not be very legal either, and I will try to speak more about the risks, since, as I said, since we are trying to push a risk-based approach, because as a regulator, we're trying to not be prescriptive on technology, but more prescriptive on the principles that should be attained by the technology developed, and to promote innovation, because we are sure that there are solutions out there that we cannot think of and that will match all the criteria which for a good age verification or age assurance system. The basic problem, as we all know, is that some platforms, some services online that we will call relying party, this is the vocabulary from the digital identity community. So some of these relying parties are subject to age-related restrictions or processes. These restrictions can be internal policy, external legislation, regulation, or inner processes where we want information or experiences or design to be adapted to the age of the users. And in this case, when the user access, register, or interact with the platform will need to get some data about this user. The use case that you all know are access control to things like violent content or pornography, registration on some website, depending on the legislation, social media, online gambling, etc. Specific minor protection that come under certain legislation. In the GDPR, we have, for example, parental consent for minors under a certain age. So you have to know that the subject is a minor if you want to apply this specific minor protection to the data subject. Or online safety, where data controllers will try to create virtual safe spaces allowing children to enjoy the digital world in a context and with interactions that are suitable for them and for their age group. So the question we're asking today, and that we have been asking ourselves for quite some time, is the following: how can the relying party obtain information about the age of a user and ensure that their age-related restrictions are enforced in a privacy-preserving way? Of course, there are already privacy risks of web browsing. When you're using any platform, a relying party that has a age restriction or not, you interact with this platform and you're giving some data to this platform. So profiling is already in place. The website can, using cookies, using fingerprinting, using digital footprint, your online behavior, get some idea about who you are and what you're doing on the website and of what category of user you belong to. As this is possible if you come several times on the same website using either the same computer, same browser, same cookie sessions, or of course if you register on this website where you get a stronger identification from the relying party, from the platform, in the form of maybe your email address if you're registered and there's your name in your email address, or if you've paid an online service for delivery and you've provided some contact information, your address, your real name, your credit card, etc. So this is already a risk for any one of us using the internet. Other risks, I will not be exhaustive in the list of privacy risks of using the internet, but other risks include the non-respect of user consent and their rights under GDPR. I'm talking from the French point of view. And of course, data leakage and breaches, so unauthorized access and illegitimate access to the data that is possessed by the data controller. These are already in place, and age verification, age assurance or not, this is something that we expect. But in these risks, except if you are providing in your registration or payment data or this kind of specific data, you're saying exactly who you are. Usually, if you are using a brand new computer or a computer in a hostel with a public Wi-Fi, you will not be identified. They will know somehow where you are with your IP address from what you're doing, but they will not be able to be certain of who you are. Now we are adding age assurance. So when the user wants to access the relying party requires some age assurance, and the user will have to provide some information so that the relying party can estimate or know their age and act in an according way. And then the relying party takes the decision on whether I grant access, I grant registration, and what information I give you based on this information. So the next question is, what are the specific risks? Because we've talked a little bit about this privacy risk. What are the specific risks associated with this process? 1, 2, 3, age assurance, providing information, and checking this information online. I will talk first about self-declaration for just 30 seconds to get it out of our way. Self-declaration is asserted age assurance. It has been in use for a long time, and I don't think it has protected a lot of minors from accessing online content which is inappropriate. Maybe some, but not all of them. And it works in a very simple way. The relying party will ask the user for age assurance, and the user will provide information without any backing evidence. Either I'm a major, or I'm 26, or this is my date of birth. But there is absolutely no check, no backing evidence of this, and I can claim that I'm 34 if I'm 6, or that I'm 6 if I'm 81. And the relying party, again, takes a decision based on this information. There is a specific privacy risk here, even though small, which is if the user is actually honest and is giving his real date of birth, then there can be data collection from the relying party in the form of the date of birth of the user, which is quite identifying, especially in the context of already having IP address and other information that may lead to, let's say, a home, a school, or an environment, and then the date of birth can provide more identifying information. And the other risk, which is not about privacy, but which is really important, is that this system is really not effective. It's really easy to bypass, really easy to not give real information, and it will not probably not protect anyone. So the new question is how to effectively apply these age-related restrictions and processes. The goal is to get reliable information, so information that is about the user and that is a true information and that is user-bound, which means that the user that is giving this reliable information is actually the person to which this information refers to. And this is where digital identity comes into play. What are the usual factors of identification and authentication? Because what we are talking about here is reliable information about a person. This is some kind of identification of this person, and making sure that this person is the person we say it is, so authentication of this person. Usually, we say there are three types of factors for this authentication online. What we call knowledge factors, so things people know, like your password, your login, your credentials. And this can be used for age assurance. For example, if I log in my social media account or I log in into my provider of online digital identity, there can be some information going through from my digital identity provider to the relying party, so that the relying party knows that I have access to this digital identity and it's probably me. I say probably because the user binding here is low. If the authentication is based only on a knowledge factor, this is easily shared. I can, if I have a digital identity which have actually very little information about me, I have no problem maybe to share it or to sell it online or to put it on a website that people will be able to use. And then since this user binding is so low, let's say the effectiveness will be a measure of how I take a risk by sharing the credentials. If the credential allow me to log into my tax payment system or to my government accounts, then probably I will not want to share it and the user binding will be quite high. But in this case, maybe I will not want to use this connection to connect to a pornographic website or online gambling site maybe. So it is a possibility, but we think it has not been very, very extensively studied because of this low user binding. Then the second type of authentication factor is the possession factor. Possession factor is what you have, something which will prove that you actually have one thing that you already had when you registered or something like this. So this can be a credit card, a mobile phone, an ID card, and these are a little more bound to the users because normally it exists only one copy of this physical item, and okay, I can give it to someone, I can lend my mobile phone to someone, I can lend my credit card to someone, but I cannot put it online, and people will not be able to use it on a massive scale, which could be the case with a simple knowledge factor. So we say the user binding is higher than with the knowledge factor, but still not really high since I can still share this, and there may be ways to circumvent these systems. For example, a credit card. I have the credit card, but actually the credit card numbers and what is required to use a credit card online is more a knowledge factor than a possession factor. So it has to be, each specific context has to be studied independently. And the third authentication factor usually defined is the inherence factor, so what you are. This is, for example, the analysis of facial features for biometric analysis, analysis of your voice, analysis of the shape of your hand, or things like this, which are really bound to you. It's really hard to, well, okay, there are generative AI now, but usually it's quite hard to share your face, share your voice. Spoofing with AI is a completely other topic that I think some people talked about yesterday and we'll talk about more, but it's not the subject of my presentation here. And this is considered to have a high binding factor to the user. And of course, if you really want to bind the authentication to the user, you will have multi-factor authentication, and you will, for example, combine presenting your ID card, which is a possession factor, with your facial features, so that there can be a biometric match between your face and your card, and this will have a very strong user binding. The problem is, reliable data and strong user binding increases identification risk. So we were in a situation where the website in the, let's say, classical browsing scenarios would be able to collect data from you, but not to identify you properly. But if we're using more and more user-bound authentication factors, then we're steadily increasing the risk of identification by a lot of services and bodies online. So basically, it's the main risk of these systems is to create a loss of, let's say, pseudonymity over the internet, which is something that we data protection authorities don't really like. At least we want the users to have a choice. Now, the most basic form that we can imagine to go forward from self-declaration is that the relying party is in charge himself of doing the age assurance. So the user wants to access a relying party, the relying party has to do some age assurance. Sorry. The user will provide some information to the relying party will process this information and takes a decision. For example, I'm showing you my ID card and my face, you are, I don't know, some social media that wants to verify my account to unblock it, or I don't know, and I have to present this information. The social media will maybe process it himself and takes a decision based on this information. The privacy risks here is that, of course, the data that was already collected and the profiling that was already possible by the online website will now have identifying data in addition. So the profile will be a lot more valuable, a lot more stronger because it's linked to you. And even though you change your cookie session, your computer, your fingerprints, well, it can be directly traced to your direct identity. So the profiling can be a lot stronger whenever you provide this user-bound data. And of course, the data leaks and breaches will be more severe since all the data will be consolidated and more strongly associated with real persons. And the third problem here is that if each relying party has to make its own age assurance or age verification, it means that people will be used to providing their ID or their face or their directly identifying information to a lot of different online platforms and services. So this will become kind of normal to provide all this information, which means that our, how do you say that? We will lower our guard, and you will probably provide information that you should not have provided, which can lead to scamming, phishing, ID spoofing, and this is something that we see more and more as we are using more and more the digital world to process this identity data. The other possible risks are about the possible, am I touching something? Ah, okay. Is about the possible conflict of interest, because if you're a platform, what you want is as many users as possible to come in your services, and at the same time, you're responsible for blocking some of the people connecting to your services. So there may be some conflict of interest, and the auditing is a bit difficult because you have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of relying parties to make sure that they properly implement age assurance or age verification system that is adapted to your regulation. So moving forward, the idea was to ask for a third party, an age assurance provider, someone which will be in charge of doing these age assurance checks, and that probably will have a little less conflict of interest and will be easier to audit because there will be less bodies to audit, and these will be then deployed by all the relying parties. So the concept is simple. I give information to the relying party. The relying party has a contract with, I called it integrated third party because it is like transparent to the user. It's just a subcontractor of the relying party. And the relying party transfers the user's information to an age assurance provider, which then processes the collected data and provides age assurance to the relying party. In this scenario, we still have a high risk of profiling, which is actually increased, because the user provides his directly identifying information to both the relying party and the age assurance provider. So there is still a possibility of profiling coupled with directly identifying data by the relying party. And this data can be associated with sensitive data, such as health data or sexual orientation data or addiction problems if we're talking about pornography, about gambling websites, etc. So this profiling is problematic. We still have the problem of data leaks that can come from now the relying party and the age assurance provider if the security measures are not properly in place. And scamming phishing is still possible since we're still giving our information directly to a lot of different relying parties. We think this, however, lower the risks of a conflict of interest and make auditing of these services easier. If we go further, we can change a little bit the paradigm so that the user will not provide this information to the relying party, but directly to the age assurance provider, which is a better situation because the relying party, which is, for example, as I said, gambling website or pornographic website or social media, does not directly get the ID or the picture of the user. So we're reducing the risk of profiling and data breaches, including identity, from a whole bunch of relying party. And this profiling and data breach is more concentrated on age assurance providers, which is supposed to be a lower number of entities, and eager to get audited and certified so that they comply with regulation. We still have some profiling, including profiling with identifying data by the age assurance provider, which is possible if the proper measures are not in place, but we reduce these risks a little bit. Then what we have been advocating, and this was actually the proof of concept that was published by CNIL a little more than 2 years ago, is to get a third party that is completely independent from the relying party. So the user, when he wants to access our website relying party that requires age assurance, will then turn to his favorite age assurance provider. Let's say it has to be in the list of age assurance providers that is known to the relying party, but he will choose his preferred age assurance provider, provides information, which will give him, for example, an age certificate, which will be provided to the relying party, which will take a decision based on this age certificate. If we're just looking at this scheme, we have a new risk here, which is that we are going back to a weak user binding, because in the previous case, cases, since the age assurance provider was directly in contact with the relying party had trust in this age assurance provider, and when he was receiving some age certificate or age assurance from the provider, it would say, okay, I know this provider, it's my usual provider, it's a fine one, and I trust him. But there, since it's the user that will provides the age certificate, it's quite hard to know if this certificate is true, if this certificate is really that really comes from an age assurance that has been done on this user and that has not been shared between different users, etc. So we are increasing, we are lowering the profiling risk, because here the age assurance provider does not know what website I'm visiting, but we're lowering the effectiveness as well, because we are decreasing the binding of this age attribute to the user. If we continue again, I forgot one thing, is that this scenario, I called it real-time age assurance by an independent third party, which means each time I connect to the relying party that asks me for age assurance, I will also connect with my age assurance provider, and the age assurance provider will not necessarily know for which relying party I'm asking for an age certificate, but it will know that I'm right now, it's, I don't know, it's 5 to 11, I need an age certificate to prove that I'm 18 plus to go on a website. And if I do that every day at 9, every day at 12, and every day at 11 o'clock, they will know that maybe I am addicted to gambling, maybe I go to porn website, I don't know. But there still will be some traces, footprints of my activity in the age assurance provider side as well, which also have directly identifying data on me. So to avoid this, we have thought, but we are sure that there are other solutions, but we have thought, but we have read actually, because this is typical in the digital identity services, that users should be able to store their credentials from the age assurance provider. So beforehand, before going to the relying party, I will provide my information to some age assurance provider or digital identity provider who will gives me an age certificate that I will store and be able to use over time. Let's say for a week, let's say for a month, let's say for a year, depending on the different characteristics that this certificate has and the characteristic of the age assurance provider and the user binding that I can add to this certificate to make sure it's mine when I'm using it. Then I give the certificate and the relying party will take his decision based on this certificate. Again, we have some kind of weak user binding because we're still not sure that the stored age certificate has been issued to the user that is using it, but we are reducing the profiling risk on the age assurance provider side. Which is why, and we're coming to decentralized identity models, which is one of the models we think is adapted also to age verification, but not the only one, where the age assurance provider will use some cryptography material to sign the certificates to make sure that they cannot be forged and cannot be altered. And they will either provide a registry, some places where the signatures authorized to make these certificates are stored and which can be consulted by the relying data, so that when the relying party has to verify the age certificate, they can at least make sure that this is not a forged certificate and this comes from an authorized source. We still have some profiling based on age assurance because when you receive the certificate, maybe it has some information about the user that is more identifying than the cookies, footprints, and fingerprints. But still, we are quite reducing the risk since we don't have a call from the user to the age assurance provider each time a relying party requires age assurance. And we are also reducing the forgery risk since the certificate are signed. Now the more, like, let's say, recent and state-of-the-art, but at the same time in development technologies that we can add to this whole decentralized identity is that when the user stores his age certificate, he will use some kind of secure element. So for example, trusted execution environment on a mobile phone, or it can be also some kind of chip, so what you have, a possession factor in which you can store some certificate that will make sure that this certificate cannot be shared online to many different users, and to strongly reduce, strongly increase the user binding of this proof of age. And another improvement over this scenario which is the one we've been pushing as well, but we know that it is not yet fully standardized, but it is coming to a good maturity right now and in the following years, we hope, is what are called zero knowledge proof protocols, which will allow me to prove to the relying party that I own an age certificate from an registered age assurance provider without actually giving any other information that can lead to profiling. So we're reducing that risk of profiling based on the age assurance material that have been provided beforehand. And this is, let's say, the typical decentralized identity solution that we think is appropriate. We think there are other solutions, and we think there needs to be other solutions because people maybe will not want to have a secure element or store something in a digital wallet on their phone, or maybe they will need age assurance in a context where they don't have much with them and they will need to be able to get age assurance without relying on these technological bricks and real government-issued ID to get a proper certificate, etc. So other solutions are open, but we have this. This is the kind of way, because we often hear about risk-based approach to choosing a solution that match the risk of harm to children in the world of age assurance and age verification. And we wanted to say that this risk-based approach is also very appropriate and necessary on the privacy and security part, and that even the problem we have is that most of the age assurance or verification methods rely on directly identifying data, and that we know that this is necessary to get strong user binding and to get reliable information. But we think with technology and with architecture of such systems, we can mitigate most of the security and privacy risks. And this is what I wanted to share with you today. Other possibilities, because I was saying that you should be able to do age estimation or age assurance in any context, even if you don't have your ID with you, maybe. And age estimation comes to mind here because it's a specificity of age assurance compared to digital identity, where looking at my face, you can probably know that I'm more than 18 years old. And this has been developed a lot, especially by companies in the UK, but also other companies. And we think it's great that this tool exists. And we know several companies are pushing to move age estimation from an online services to the user's device, the browser or the cell phone, which is, again, a very good idea, because instead of providing directly identifying data to a third party, you're keeping your directly identifying data with you, and you're just getting the software from the age assurance provider, which in turn will be used to provide age assurance to your relying party. We've eliminated here most of the risks, or that's what we think, but of course there are all the implementation risks. And so these systems are quite complex and require good implementation and careful technical planning and auditing. And of course we encourage open standards, open source software, and bug bounties, and everything that can make sure that implementation actually matches the objectives that we had. And to conclude, so the questions we had were, what are the specific risks associated with age assurance? And we said over collection of data, mostly of the identity data, and profiling, including the identity and or sensitive data of children and adults alike. And low efficacy, of course, if we're using technology that is not user binding enough. The other question was how to effectively apply age-related restrictions and process. And we answered, we need reliable information and user binding. And the third question was how the relying party can obtain the information about the age of our user in a privacy preserving way. And our idea about this is that the information should be obtained most of the time directly from the user, and that cryptography and secure hardware can be used to build trust on the user and avoid the self-declaration scenario and avoid profiling based on the age assurance provided. Thank you for your attention. Yes?
Will you provide a certification scheme? Will you certify people applying with what you're now suggesting? Or are you just being controlled?
The microphone? Yes. Sorry. Are we going to certify schemes or providers? Actually, we are not officially the regulator on this topic, because the regulator on this topic is more the ARCOM, which is the audiovisual regulator, and now the digital services coordinator under the DSA. And they're let's say, the main regulator over these age restrictions online. But the law that is still under scrutiny by the parliament in France say that ARCOM will have to get input from the CNIL on the data protection side to make sure that the systems that they implement actually restrict children from accessing inappropriate content or experiences, but also is compliant with GDPR and state-of-the-art data protection. So we're not directly regulating this, but we're trying to get these inputs to the audiovisual regulator so that it is taken into account.
Sorry, could we have further questions after, if that's okay, because we're running a bit behind.
One follow-up question.
I think we're 5 minutes behind already, so if we can take them later. That's okay. Thank you so much, Antoine. I think it's really exciting to see all the work. Is this your bag?
Thank you.
To see all the work that data protection authorities are doing on